Why are so many people obsessed with the Ford Ranger? That question has always been a bit of mystery to me. I waited for quite a long time to figure out the answer to that, and today, finally, I'm gonna figure it out. In this episode, we have this 2023 Ford Ranger Wildtrak with a 4x4 drivetrain, and we will be taking it out for a proper review to get acquainted with this pickup truck. Spoiler alert, the ride is jaw-droppingly good for a pickup truck. So if you want to know more about this Ford Ranger, allow me to take you for a ride inside this car. But before that, I'd like to thank Ryan Autodeal for allowing me to take this car for a spin. And if you guys are looking to buy a high-quality used car, Ryan Autodeal is the place to be. This Ford Ranger Wildtrak is available at their dealership. And if you want to get a good price, simply use our code AutoTune Media so they'll know that you watched the video. I'll leave their details in the description below. Let's get started. The Ford Ranger's exterior design and overall silhouette takes inspiration from its bigger brother, the Ford F-150. That is evident when you look at its headlights. I like the overall look of the Ford Ranger, especially in this color. I don't usually go for bright colors, but on the Ford Ranger, the Luxe Yellow paint just works. And in my opinion, the main thing that defines the Ford Ranger is its boxy shape. We're now looking at the exterior of this 2023 Ford Ranger Wildtrak 4x4. The first thing that you will notice when you're looking at this car is how handsome the front of this car is. Just look at how masculine the design is in this car. And I think the reason why the Ford Ranger is designed like so is for it to kind of resemble its bigger brother, which is the Ford F-150. And so the daytime running lights look like the ones in the Ford F-150. Well, they don't look exactly the same, but you know, it has that impression. And perhaps that's also the reason why some people upgrade the headlights of their Ford Rangers or Ford Everests into headlights that look exactly the ones in the Ford F-150. But you know, as it is, the headlights of the Ford Ranger look perfect as they are. This car actually looks very handsome, and you know, when you ask me, the Ford Ranger could be on the top of my list if I'm looking for a pickup truck that's as masculine or that's as macho as this one. And I won't change anything with the Ford Ranger, especially its headlights, because primarily it's just an added cost. Personally, I prefer the stock headlights of the Ford Ranger. And of course, the second thing that you'll notice when you look at this car is its bright Luxe Yellow color. And in some shades, or when the sunlight hit it from different angles, such as this one, you'll see that there is a slight change in the shade or in the hue of the body color of this car. The color of this Ford Ranger looks different depending on how light hits it. And looking at the Ford Ranger from the side, it kind of still resembles its previous generation. But one thing that I like about the Ford Ranger, especially when you're looking at it from the side, is that it looks so boxy. I don't know, some people prefer cars that look streamlined, but me personally, when talking about pickup trucks and SUVs, I prefer boxy pickup trucks or SUVs. And the Ford Ranger actually captures my attention when looking at it from the side. Especially when you look at it from the side on its hood. Look at how boxy the hood is. So the Ford Ranger comes with 18-inch wheels, and wrapped around those wheels are 255 6.5 R18s. And since this one is a pickup truck, it comes with a lift spring suspension at the back. Most of the pickup trucks right now in the market come with a lift spring suspension at the back. So far, the only pickup trucks that I know that come with independent suspensions at the back are number 1, the Nissan Navara, and number 2 is the BYD Shark 6. But later on, we'll test this car on how it behaves on the road. And while filming the portion of this video, I have actually driven this car for a few hours outside, and I can say that it rides so freaking well. And one nifty feature that I noticed in the Ford Ranger is this step board. You know, this feature just makes sense because it's a pickup truck, and ordinarily you will load something on its truck bed, and when you're loading something, you could either open this door or you can step on there or step here, right? But one problem that you have when you have stuff inside the truck bed is that it can be very challenging to reach those stuff that are located over at the end of the pickup truck, and that's where this step board comes in handy. So this is actually a very smart design. And as you'll notice, this one comes with a sports bar, and when you look at the truck bed, you'll notice that it already has this cover in here. And this cover actually doesn't come stock with Ford Rangers, and instead the previous owner of this car just had this installed. And by the way, this car is for sale in Ryan Autodeal, and if you buy this car, you get a pickup truck that already has a cover on its truck bed. My favorite part in the rear portion of the Ford Ranger is definitely this huge logo in here. Just look at how huge the Ford logo is, and yeah, I like that it's embossed in here. It's proudly displayed that it's a Ford, and of course it has this blacked out 4x4 emblem here and a blacked out Wildtrak emblem in here. And look at those lights. I like how this light is designed as well. And when you look at its rear bumper, the Ford Ranger also has sensors at the rear. And one thing that I noticed in the Ford Ranger when opening the truck bed is that this door is actually very light. Just look at it. I can carry it with my fingers. Usually in truck beds, these doors are very heavy. Just look at how light it is. I can carry it with 3 fingers. Very convenient, isn't it? If you like a techy car, you'll definitely appreciate the Ford Ranger. This car comes with a lot of tech, from its huge infotainment system to its multiple driving modes. But here's the thing, it isn't overwhelming. You won't find yourself fiddling inside looking for controls, because everything is exactly where it should be. And these seats, just look at them. Aren't these pretty? And we're now looking at the interior of this Ford Ranger Wildtrak. And the one that immediately got my attention as soon as I opened the doors of this Ford Ranger are these nice leather seats. And if you look at these seats, they have actually very nice texture. They have soft cushioning, but at the same time, the leather cover in here is very thick. And if you'll notice, the stitching on the leather seats kind of matches the body color of the Ford Ranger that we have. And for your reference, I am 5'9", and this is my sitting position. Now let's see how much space there is. And as you can see, I can still sit comfortably, but there is not much enough space for me in here. So we're now seated at the driver's seat of the Ford Ranger, and the one thing that will immediately pull your attention is this huge infotainment system. So this one comes with wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. So it's actually very convenient. So right now I'm connected via Apple CarPlay, and you can see that Spotify is launched in my phone, and underneath that you still get access to your car temperature for your air conditioning. You also get more buttons in here. Below this huge infotainment system, you have tactile buttons here, mainly to control your air conditioning and your hazard lights. And underneath this panel, you get more storage space. So as you can see, this storage space actually is a wireless charger for your phone. And when you look closer, you'll see that you get more ports in here. So you have another USB-C and USB-A port, and a smaller storage space here, perhaps for your wallet. And by the way, these are the keys of the Ford Ranger. So these are key fobs, and because of that, this Ford Ranger comes with push to start system. You get cup holders here with these spacers to stabilize your drink, and this is the automatic transmission of the Ford Ranger. So it has a straight layout, so you have your park, reverse, neutral drive, and the manual mode. There are no paddle shifters here, by the way, which could have made the Ford Ranger a better pickup truck. And below this transmission lever, you have your electronic parking brake. To access for high and for low, you simply have to press these buttons in here. You have another knob at the side of these buttons, which when you turn, you'll get access to different drive modes. And one interesting thing when you access different drive modes is that the way the driver dashboard looks will be different depending on the drive mode. So right now we're in normal and that's how it looks. And when you go to, for example, when you go to tow/hole, the driver dashboard will be different. It will show different information. And now let's put it on sand mode. And when you're in sand mode, as you can see, the four-wheel drive system is automatically activated. You'll see as well that the rear differentials were automatically locked. And you'll see here on the top portion that the car is monitoring how level it is. And since we're talking about the driver dashboard, look at how nice the steering wheel. And again, you have your stitchings here similar to the stitchings in the leather seats of the car. The driver dashboard, which we already explored, show different displays depending on which drive mode you're in. And the dashboard of this Ford Ranger actually looks very utilitarian. And although it looks utilitarian, it's actually very techy. So it's a combination of utilitarian and techy features. So nice design over here. You have a very shallow storage space in here. Look at the aircon vents. They don't look like any other aircon vents. They look very unique, very distinct to the Ford Ranger. And one feature that I like about this one is this hidden cup holder in this side. So you can put your beverage while you're driving. Very nice. The interior of this car looks very nice, feels very comfortable, and I have no complaints about the interior. And techy as it may seem, everything is laid out to its proper place. You won't fiddle around in the car looking for something because everything is logically placed to where you will expect to find those things. And yeah, props to Ford for having this nice design of the interior.
This Ford Ranger Wildtrak comes with a 2-liter bi-turbo diesel engine. I think I might have misjudged the Ford Ranger before I tested it because I thought that this small engine won't bring me enough excitement. But boy was I wrong. This engine is potent. It's eager, it begs to be revved, and when you rev it, it unleashes its potential. The power delivery is deceptively smooth. It's so smooth that you'll think that the engine isn't powerful enough, but it's just properly refined.
We're now inside this 2023 Ford Ranger Wildtrak 4x4 with a 2-liter bi-turbo diesel engine. So what I noticed about the engine of this Ford Ranger Wildtrak is that the engine is very willing to be revved higher. Well, it's to be expected to have that characteristic because after all, when you're looking at the brochure of the Ford Ranger, you might think that the 2-liter diesel engine could be a little too small for this car, and I think for that reason they compensated it by giving this car a rev-happy diesel engine. And so if you're asking if I feel the small displacement out of this car when driving it, I'd say that in most scenarios, you cannot feel the smaller displacement in this car, especially when you're just, driving on level roads such as the ones that we're driving in right now here in Angeles City, Pampanga. And when you press the gas pedal, the engine is actually very happy to comply. And later on, we'll talk about its transmission, which is very satisfying to experience, by the way. So the engine is very responsive every time you touch the throttle pedal. And I actually appreciate how rev happy
the engine is. I'm noticing a slight lack of torque, but you can compensate that by pressing the throttle pedal a little deeper when you're going from a standstill. I also noticed that from inside the cabin, the sound of the engine, the grunt of the engine is very tamed. Unlike other vehicles that I have tried before, you can really feel the grunt of the engine. In here, from inside the cabin, you can hear it ever so slightly, not enough to be bothersome. Of course, it's to be expected that for a diesel engine, they really make noise. And actually, it's very tolerable inside. And I don't know if you noticed that, so we gave way to an incoming car and I went from a standstill, and we felt a slight hesitation on the engine there. So that's what I was pertaining about when I talked about a slight lack of torque from the get-go. But once it gets going, the engine is actually very eager to comply. It's very eager to give power to the car. And speaking of throttle pedal, I actually like the throttle response of this car. It's very easy to modulate, unlike other cars that I've tried. So as I mentioned, in normal situation, the 2-liter diesel engine is actually more than enough to propel the car, either when you're cruising at a slightly higher speed or when you're trying to accelerate to even higher speeds. I just don't know how this engine will behave when for example, you're going uphill, because after all, the power that you feel from this engine is primarily courtesy of its dual turbo setup. If I get it correctly, I think the application of those turbo is that there is an initial turbo that spools very early to provide torque, and once it reaches even higher RPM, the other turbo spools to, further give more power. And so you won't feel the smaller displacement in level roads like this. But I think the smaller engine or the 2-liter engine will show its limitations or will show its lack of displacement when you're going uphill. But for now, those are just speculations. I cannot say for sure if that's what will happen. But, in my previous experience, driving cars, even with bigger displacements, uphills really become a challenge for vehicles, either diesel or gasoline engines. And for vehicles with smaller displacements, like this one, chances are it will show its limitations on that kind of road condition. And so if you're gonna drive this car, mainly for example here in Pampanga, in Metro Manila, or in some places where it's not mountainous, you'll find the 2-liter bi-turbo engine more than enough. And actually, I like how the engine responds every time I touch the throttle pedal. And as I have already mentioned, the throttle pedal in here is properly modulated, at least to my own preferences. And combine the rev-happy diesel engine and a responsive throttle pedal, you get a nice driving experience out of this Ford Ranger.
This Ford Ranger comes with a 10-speed automatic transmission. That's way too many, isn't it? That's what I also thought when I was looking at its features. But upon driving the Ford Ranger, the 10-speed made sense to me. No gear felt too short or too tall. And because of that, power delivery was linear. It felt effortless, and downshifts are instantaneous. In a snap, you're in the right gear without all the jolts of automatic transmissions.
And now let's talk about its transmission. So this Ford Ranger comes with a 10-speed automatic transmission. I've been driving this Ford Ranger for a few hours now, and I tried driving it spiritedly. I tried driving it in a heavy traffic, and right now we're just cruising. I haven't felt the transmission shifting gears. That's how smooth the 10-speed transmission is in this car. And I have this impression that when a car comes with more than 6 gears in its automatic transmission, chances are it will shift too frequently. And I guess that's also what's happening in this car. But one thing that I like about the Ford Ranger is that you won't feel the transmission shifting gears. And so it's actually very smooth. And one thing that I noticed in the previous cars that I've tried in the past with more than 6 gears in their transmission is that their acceleration becomes lackluster, in that the first gear becomes too tall, and so you won't actually feel the car pulling right from the get-go, right? And that sensation isn't true when you're inside the Ford Ranger, because the Ford Ranger has a nice, smooth, linear acceleration from a standstill. And I can say that this transmission was designed to be as smooth as possible, and I think that has achieved that. So actually, I don't have any complaint as to how the transmission works or as to how the transmission responds every time you touch the throttle pedal. And instead, if there's one thing that could have been improved in this car, is its manual mode. In the Ford Ranger, you have to push it further down to access the manual mode, which is indicated as M here in the transmission. To shift gears manually on other cars, you can either try the paddle shifters, or you can either push the lever up or down in order to upshift or downshift, right? But in the Ford Ranger, all it has are these buttons. And I can say that I appreciate these buttons because honestly, I have the feeling that these buttons are just afterthought when they put them here, because when you have an automatic car and you put it in manual mode, chances are you're looking for something more exciting, right? But what's exciting about pressing a button to upshift or downshift, right? So for me, it doesn't make sense that the layout is like that. I was actually looking for, something more tactile, such as being able to push the shift lever up or down, or to be able to shift using paddle shifters. But the Ford Ranger has none of that, and so I'm stuck with these buttons. So, I'll just stick to the drive mode. And anyway, when you're in full automatic mode, the transmission is responsive. Okay, I'll show you. So right now, we're running at 24 kilometers per hour. And when I press the gas pedal, and there you go, right? So the delivery is very linear. And even at that instantaneous press of the throttle pedal, I didn't feel the automatic transmission shifting to a lower gear. There isn't even a slight jolt signifying that there was a downshift that happened in there. You just feel the power delivery coming in the car. So yeah, hands down to Ford for, putting the engineering behind this buttery smooth automatic transmission.
Usually, when I handle a car that's new to me, it takes a few minutes to be comfortable inside. But in the Ford Ranger, as soon as I started driving it, it felt familiar. Don't get me wrong, this is my first time in a Ford Ranger. It's that easy to drive. The handling was spot on, the suspension was tight, the brakes were powerful, and I cannot believe that a pickup truck could handle this well. The Ford Ranger impressed me in a lot of things, and the car's behavior on the road is definitely one that impresses.
And lastly, let's talk about the handling, suspension, and braking of the Ford Ranger. So first, let's talk about the braking. I can say that the braking of this Ford Ranger is very responsive. I also like how the brake pedal is modulated in this car. I like that the initial biting point of the brake is situated higher, and so you can feel the brakes biting when you touch the brake pedal. It's gonna be easy to modulate the brakes of the Ford Ranger, especially when you're in heavy traffic. And I don't notice a lack of braking power from this car, huge as it may seem, because the Ford Ranger is actually a huge vehicle, right? The handling of the Ford Ranger for a pickup truck, I could characterize it as something that is sharp, something that is responsive, easy to drive. I like how the car responds with every input that I exert on the steering wheel. There is no vagueness to the steering wheel of the Ford Ranger. Well, actually, a very sharp steering wheel sometimes can also be detrimental to the driving experience. And so in the Ford Ranger, the steering is sharp, but not too sharp so as to make the car feel a bit weird to drive. It's actually properly suited for this car. And when I first stepped inside the Ford Ranger a while ago, and when I started driving it, there was close to zero time spent adjusting myself to how the steering wheel responds in this car. It actually feels very familiar. I like how it turns. I like the behavior of the car when it turns. For a pickup truck, there is minimal body roll relative to the segment that this car is in. And I can say that the handling, or the good handling of this car, can also be attributed to how well the dampening of this car is designed, because honestly, it feels more like driving a properly tuned SUV than driving a pickup truck. That's how smooth the driving experience is inside. it doesn't feel like a pickup truck when you're inside this car, especially considering that it still has leaf springs at the back, and you won't even feel any vibrations, any jolts in this car. And the ride is just smooth. Cars behave differently when driving over asphalt roads and driving over concrete roads without asphalt pavement. And normally you'll feel vibrations inside the car when you're driving over concrete roads. But in the Ford Ranger, the ride is just so smooth. And you know, I don't even feel any vibration inside the car. That's how good the dampening is inside the Ford Ranger. Even going on speed bumps, you would expect that you'll be thrown around. We're going over speed bumps. And look at how the car behaves. It feels so tight even when going over tall speed bumps. You know, I don't have any complaints about the handling, about the suspension in this car, because I appreciate everything that Ford has done to refine the drive of this Ford Ranger. And I can say that this Ford Ranger has a very refined ride that you won't expect in a pickup truck. When it comes to driving dynamics, I can say that Ford again has nailed it in this aspect, because the combination of the engine, of the throttle pedal, of the transmission is actually spot on. This is the feeling that I'm looking for when I'm driving a car, the feeling of familiarity. Perhaps there was a slight adjustment period when I was fiddling with all the tech inside this car. But in terms of driving dynamics, it's easy to familiarize yourself. Just look at how comfortable I am in the seats. I can definitely find the perfect seating position for me, and I can say that with all the adjustments available for me as a driver inside the Ford Ranger, I'm in for a treat if I'll be driving this one for a long trip. Yeah, that's about it, and let's now wrap up this review.
By now, you could probably tell that I'm impressed with the Ford Ranger. This car is amongst the best cars that I have featured so far in AutoTune Media. Indeed, you cannot judge a car by simply reading the brochures or by watching reviews. You have to experience it firsthand, and I'm glad that I have experienced this Ford Ranger. It opened my mind to the possibility that pickup trucks could drive as good as SUVs, perhaps better than some of them. And of course, I know that there are some issues with the Ford Ranger, but I'm not one to comment on those things because I review cars the way I experience them. And to be truly honest, the experience was exceptional. This has been Enzo from AutoTune. Till next time.